Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Let's spend a few minutes with The Player of Games by Iain M Banks. This is book 2 of the Culture series, and it was originally published back in 1988. So I previously read book 1 of this Culture series a while back, Consider Phlebas, and I will link to that chat down in the details below. But I just love the Culture universe. The Culture this is science fiction. It's a post-scarcity civilization, interplanetary, and it's post-scarcity, meaning like the citizens of the Culture have all of their basic needs met, so they don't need to worry about like earning money to get food or shelter or anything like that. Everything is just, they live in a civilization of abundance. And I just think that's such a cool thing to think about. What it would be like to live in a civilization like that. Okay, but about the Culture series, an interesting thing about the series is the Culture novels, unlike many science fiction and fantasy series, which need to be read in order, the Culture series does not appear to need to be read in order at all. This book really didn't have a lot to do with Consider Phlebas, so it's not like a continuing story from the previous book. So it is I think it's probably a pretty good jumping off point for a person who wants to read the Culture. I found it a bit more engaging than I did Consider Phlebas, but that was just my preference maybe. So, spoiler warning. As usual here on my channel, this will be a spoiler-free chat. I will not give away anything that I think would detract from a first-time reader's experience with The Player of Games. So what's this one about? As the title suggests, the main character in this book is a player of games. So about the Culture. Remember, the Culture is a post-scarcity society, meaning all your basic needs are met. So this means the citizens of the Culture have like lots of free time because they don't have to work. They only do things that they find fulfilling. And our main character, Gergely, in this book, his main sort of interest lies in games. And so he has studied and played and become expert at many, many games across many, many different planets and many, many civilizations. He's learned all their games, but he's become a bit bored here, just because he's kind of at the top of his game in the sense that he feels like he's kind of learned them all because they all do have some sort of similarities. So he's kind of bored with life. Well, enter the Culture's special circumstances. So special circumstances is kind of like I don't want to say it's like CIA ops or anything, because that sounds kind of a little more maybe nefarious than it is. But it does work sort of in secret on the side, influencing matters around the galaxy among planets. And so the Culture does have a rule against direct interference, but that's not to say they don't give nudges here and there. And they want him to go to this very distant civilization where there's a game that has really, really high stakes. This game in this other civilization is very, very important. Like it's the ultimate, actually, important thing to this Culture. Actually, whoever wins the game is held periodically, and whoever wins becomes the emperor, becomes like the leader. So this civilization is a really, really long ways. He doesn't really want to do this, or he's hesitant to do it because of the time commitment, and just as far as the distance goes, even though the Culture has interplanetary travel, and so they do have a fast sort of system of travel, This is so far away that it would take a number of years to get there. I'm blanking on exactly the number of years, but like 4 or 5 years or more. I think it was like 4 or 5 years. So it'd take a good long while to get there. And so he doesn't really want to commit that time and then get back, right? He doesn't really want to commit that amount of time, even though also in the culture, people have this extremely long longevity. You know, people live a really long time. For various, because of the advanced medical care, number one, but number two, they can do all sorts of things, augmenting their bodies and changing around. You know, we learn a lot about the culture through, well, incidentally, you know, we learn in the book, we will learn these little facts about like what life's like in the culture, and it's pretty cool. So as I mentioned, Gerge is very hesitant to go on this journey. Then this AI drone sort of interferes in the situation. This is one of his drone acquaintances, and this is another aspect of the culture that's pretty cool. Is like they do have sentient AI. So like the ships are usually these mines, and then they have these drones that are they kind of float around. They don't walk, like they're not humanoid per se, but they speak and they are sentient. And anyway, he has this friend that's a drone, and he comes to also to talk to Gerge about going on this mission with special circumstances. And I won't disclose exactly what happens or why, but Gerge does decide to go on make the journey. So, you know, I did mention about how far away it is. And so he does give him a lot of time to study the game because it is a complex game and there's high stakes. He could potentially even lose his life in the game. And so, you know, he needs to learn how to play the game pretty well. There's a quote here about it that says, "The game of Azad is used not so much to determine which person will rule, but which tendency within the empire's ruling class will have the upper hand, which branch of economic theory will be followed, which creeds will be recognized within the religious apparatus, and which political policies will be followed." So see, this game, it not only determines the leader, but it determines really which direction the outcome of this game is going to determine which direction that this Empire of Azad takes over the course of next few years. All right, so no more about the plot because, you know, Gerge does venture out on start this journey, and so we won't go into the outcome there of what happened. So about Gerge and gaming. So the thing about gaming in our present day sometimes I think has the idea that it's a waste of time because it's not like productive. It's not like providing most people it's a pastime. It's a hobby. It's not something that you're doing for a living. But in Gerge's situation here, you know, it is his primary focus, and he really excels at it. He says about himself, "Because I do have something that nobody can copy, something nobody else can have. I'm me. I'm one of the best." He's proud of his accomplishment in games, and also the people around him, his culture sort of rewards him for that because he has put in the effort to become the expert of games, the player of games. The culture would basically be open to however you wanted to express yourself as long as you know you didn't hurt other people. The book makes a point that you can tell a lot about a society from the types of games that it has. There's a quote here that says, "The terminal screen opened and showing the pages of an ancient barbarian treatise on games. The book, a millennium old when the civilization had been contacted 2,000 years earlier, was limited in its appreciation, of course, but Gerge never ceased to be fascinated by the way a society's games revealed so much about its ethos, its philosophy, its very soul." I thought that was really cool because what do games in our culture, our society say about us as people? I'm not that much of a gamer. I think a lot of games are violent games. They're games of like domination and violence. I just speaking on just what I generally know, since I am not really a gamer. But I think this really interesting thought experiment about what do games of a culture say about that culture. But of course, not everybody in the culture can self-actualize in this way. And in the last book and in this book, we see some examples of that. People who aren't able to find that meaning in their life that you would need to without it, the structure being applied externally. So the galaxy is full of civilizations that are opposed to the culture and the values of the culture. And I mentioned kind of special circumstances. The culture in general does value peace, but as I mentioned, they have special circumstances that's not beyond giving societies little nudges here and there. And this reminded me of the prime directive of Star Trek. So the prime directive of Star Trek, for those who are not Trekkies, is that the Federation in Star Trek cannot interfere with any other planet's development, even if that means that the development, the planet's going to go extinct or something. But of course, in the course of the show, there's all kinds of instances where the prime directive gets either ignored or tweaked a little bit in order to fulfill the plot device in whatever particular episode. But the prime directive, the culture doesn't really have that. It's not like they won't interfere. It's that they're they try to be very careful. That's not to say that there's not consequences sometimes. And sometimes, like in Consider Phlebas, the first book, there's an out-and-out war with a civilization that just opposes everything about the culture's way of life. And so that was really interesting, too. So I think I will stop the chat there. The book was tons of fun. I've already read, actually, Use of Weapons, the next book in the culture series, but I haven't done a chat yet. I'm a little behind on my chats, but I will have a chat on Use of Weapons coming up before too long. My next chat, however, is going to be some history. The Scythians, Nomad Warriors of the Steppe by Barry Cunliffe. History of these nomadic people is really fascinating and a beautiful addition. I'll talk about this in my next chat. So until next time, take care.